teach 4 periods of science every day, 7th grade science, about 15 minutes long.
All right. And so our first question for you, Karla, is what does your school classroom look like?
So I actually just moved into a brand new classroom. We built a brand new, this is my old classroom, but we just built a brand new, so I have a very large science class with tables. We use a lot of technology. My kids are one-to-one iPads, so I have an Apple TV hooked to my projector, so I can teach from anywhere in the room with my iPad or my laptop, and then my students can also project anywhere they want. So it's a very large classroom to do good science and not worry about getting things dirty. I have outdoor facilities, so I have 3 doors in the room, goes to the science room next to me, and then we have a door that goes right outside, so I can go outside easily, move tables. We're excited, but we're still moving in.
Awesome. That's so great to hear. I love that they have one-to-one capabilities. And next slide, Nick. So our next question for you is, what did science instruction look like before you had Amplify Science?
So Amplify actually comes from the Lawrence Hall of Science at UC Berkeley. I was an undergraduate there, and I actually worked for them. So I got some early training on inquiry-based science, and that's kind of always how I taught. I was never a textbook person. We had one as a resource. So I used to do, I tried to do some labs to teach a concept, do some follow-up things with video, different things. I wasn't one to follow chapters in a book. I would also, because I'm the only 7th grade science teacher in my grade, I kind of can do what I'd like as long as I'm meeting standards. 9 years ago, I came back to science from math, and Next Gen was kind of on the pike, and I was like, I like to be ahead of the curve. So I started asking, what is this 3 strands, and how am I going to meet all of this? And the standards have changed, so the content that I've been teaching is not really the new content for 7th grade, because we did go interdisciplinary. So it has changed in the fact that I've gone from a little more teacher directed with like recipe labs, I call them, to a lot more unique student-centered education.
Awesome. And the next question, what were some of the challenges you were encountering and looking to solve?
So one, I was looking to solve content that helped meet the new standards, because they did change. They took out the anatomy. Like I said, I went from 7th grade life science to 7th grade, what they call interdisciplinary. That's what my district decided we were going to go. And so I just said, wow, this is all new curriculum. Plus, you have this new application base. You're adding in the engineering. And I was like, okay, I'm all for it, but I don't have anything for this. And I don't have time to develop anything. There's got to be somebody who's getting ahead of the curve. And luckily, it was the Learning Design Group in Amplify. And so I actually got to pilot the very early parts of Amplify. So I've actually been teaching it as my backbone for 3 years, but I've been working with it for almost 7 years now.
I love that you have so much experience with it, and that you were able to kind of, speak to, you didn't have time. They changed the standards. Everything is brand new now. And like, how are you supposed to create an entire, new curriculum from scratch? And luckily, like Amplify was a great resource for you.
And it's in California, just had what they call an adoption, that, they have things on the list. It's recommended. Just last year, that list came out.
Yeah.
So, I was like, I can't, I would have waited 7 years to do anything to jump on this. Some schools are just now getting on the NGSS, train. And so I'm so glad that and then I was able to bring my team, the 6th grade and 8th grade teachers, with me. And so it's nice that, we're not stressed like everybody else, and we've kind of we've implemented well.
That's great to hear. All right. And so what were you nervous about before implementing, and how the implementation go? I know you already had worked with LHS, but there's always nerves, I'm sure.
Well, when we field tested, you have to understand, when they say that stuff was field tested, it was field tested by classroom teachers. Right. And I've gotten to see how our feedback changed what Amplify did. So when I field tested, we were true and to the curriculum. When they wanted us to try to teach it in 45 minutes, and we tried to do it. And so that was stressful just because I had to try to keep exactly as it was written. And then when I got to see how it's changed. So I'd say when you implement a new curriculum like Amplify, you can't get through all 9 units. That's just unreasonable. You can't just move to a new curriculum right off the bat. And so the implementation, the field testing went well because I saw the kids excited. I saw they loved, I got to field test things like, it's not a 7th grade unit, but I got to field test the adaptations unit it's like a little video game with the little creatures that kill each other and how you have to get them to evolve. And they loved it. And I had parents go, I thought they were playing a video game, and I yelled at them, and they were like, no, this is my homework. I got to do this. And so, and it was fun to share with the parents these simulations and the thinking and the big questions. It's just such an easier way to organize work. And then, of course, you have the boards. So when my admin come in, that's what we're doing. Not that all my curriculum is Amplify. I do things here and there in between. I do try to sometimes dig deeper, which now Amplify has added to the curriculum to some of the units. So, but I think when you get a new curriculum, I was nervous about, what order were we going to do this in? And there's recommended, but you've got to sometimes work with other people, either in your district or your site. How many materials do I need? How long will they last? So we actually built our own kits because at the time we had field tested so many that we had kits already. So we built most of our kits. And then I have a list of my team goes, okay, I need to reorder this, I'm out. But most of our stuff is last us. We keep it in tubs by units, so it's easy to find and get. And so, I think for some people it's a worry of the money just to keep the materials for the labs, going. I think some people would like to see more labs, but there's nothing to say you can't add to it. And then the other thing is, I learned you had to trust the curriculum as it got there. You had to keep things, but we're going to do that. No, let them learn it. They will get there, and you're going to guide them. But we were like, I would have said that if I hadn't read the script, not to say that type of thing. So that was the time to learn a new curriculum. But again, you just have to have confidence that you'll get there, and it won't happen in 1 year. It definitely will not happen in 1 year.
Yeah, you brought up so many great points about just the time it takes and trusting the curriculum that you will get there at a certain point. And then before we move forward, if you have any questions for Karla, please feel free to put them in the chat below. And then at the end of this webinar, we will read them off if there are any, and Karla will take the time to answer them. So our next question is, what does a week in the life look like for you? Prep, planning, the whole bit.
So, and I have not taught all my 7th grade units. So I've had a lot of loss the last 2 years. So I've been out a lot dealing with that. I lost a brother 1 year and my mother and uncle another year.
Oh.
So that kind of got me off track for the schedule I was on. But if it's a new unit, I really open the box. I look at all my print materials. I kind of look, what's going to be going up on the board. I do like the beginning unit, where this unit is going, what's the big question. And so that takes me, for me, that's usually like a weekend of work. And then I do try to look at a week lessons out at one time, just to kind of see where I'm going, where the labs are. Some of the labs, you got to do a little planning a couple days. It's not just take it out that day and you're ready. And so I like to see where the hands are within the chapters and the units. Where's the critical juncture? And then the night, to prep for a lesson, I technically usually teach with one screen on the student version and one screen on the teacher version. So I have a student version on my iPad that's going to be projected, and then I have the script type things in front of me. Sometimes I'll screenshot and highlight things. But I do kind of teach Amplify with 2 screens. So I'm not having to flip through my teacher edition to just remind myself that. After a while, you get real used to, after you've taught a unit like once or twice, it's just, you don't have to prep as much. So the first time you teach it, it does require some time to prep. you really kind of need to read through the script, read their suggestions, and again, that trusting where it's going to go, not to give kids answers before they're ready for them, or they will discover them on their own through their exploration. So again, it really is student-centered. You are facilitating learning, and that's something I get from everybody. I don't feel like I'm teaching. Well, you're not. You're facilitating. You know, they're teaching each other through their conversations, through their discoveries, through creating their own data. And I think that's what's powerful about it. And again, always, you know, it doesn't mean you have to give up your things you love in your curriculum. This is just my backbone, and then I do other things.
So Karla, what advice would you give to another teacher or school looking into, you know, bringing a new science curriculum into them or in?
Right. Well, you know, like I said, I'm the only 7th grade science teacher, so I kind of prep on my own. But it's good that I can talk to the teachers in 7th and 8th, and we can talk about what's realistic. And we're giving a lot of professional courtesy by our district to know what's realistic. And so, you know, we were like the first year, if we can get through 4 units out of the 9, and our goal was to get through the 2 engineering units. We really enjoy those because the engineering standards are the new part of these whole standards, you know, and the science and engineering practices. And so we felt that, you know, Amplify is great about science and engineering. We love it. Those 2 engineering, digital engineering internships is what they're called. But I'd say, don't expect to teach all parts of the curriculum. Give yourself some room so you have the stuff that you've done that works, that you like, the kids like, and then still meet your standards. And then, you know, do a unit and kind of really reflect, how would I change that, or would I teach at a different time? And so, and I do take notes. I do have, you know, a little notebook, a binder that I kind of say, oh, I would have done this differently. You know, it's okay to change it and do it yourself. Like for me, when they have to read an article, I don't read it in the portal. The kids get it as a PDF into their iPads, so they can really highlight it in different colors and really tear it up. That's just a choice I made. You know, it's not like somebody's watching you doing step by step, but it is helpful the first year to kind of teach it to fidelity and then see, you know, where you would make your changes. And it's all, and again, on the slide is my Twitter account. I don't do Facebook, but I do tweet quite a bit, and I'm accessible that way. So I'd say take it slow. Don't expect to just do everything in the curriculum. 9 units is a lot. When they do, I've rarely done a unit that takes less time than they say, just because I actually go with the flow sometimes with the kids. If they're really into working in this, like the tsunami, we need another day, we can make this better, Ms. Orosco. I give it to them because I can do that. When I was field testing, I couldn't. So yeah, I just say take it slow. No, you know, as science teachers, failure is okay. That's all part of the science. And some lessons will be good, and some lessons like, ooh, I blew it. But like me, you get to do it 4 times a day. So my 4 first period is always the guinea pig period, and my 5th period is like they get the best of the day. So sometimes I wish I could switch them around so they weren't always the guinea pig class.
Those are fun. That's a fun way to put it. Like your first class, it's your first roll of it, and then by the end, you're a master at it.
Yes. They don't always appreciate that, but they do benefit from it. So.
I know, that's so great. So can you give us an example of a success you've seen in your classroom through using Amplify Science?
I think the success I've seen is the way the kids work with data and analyze data. You know, every unit has a sim where they're working through it to learn, but it also creates rich data where the kids are creating the data, analyzing the data, and then what does that mean? And then turning into that claim, evidence, reasoning, and that's part of their evidence. I think the other part is they don't fight the reading because they're short, high content, but you know, not a lot of words. You know, some of them came from schools. Remember, I get kids from all over the world being on a military base. So some of them only do textbook science. Some of them have actually been on pretty sophisticated campuses. Some have been on special STEM programs. So this is a way that, you know, keeps them engaged. They do read those articles. I think the other thing is the just learning how to work through claims, evidence, reasoning, the language of argumentation. Amplify has some great resources for that. You know, the intro lesson for me is geology on Mars. High interest for what's going on in Mars now, a lot of correlations. And so it's just nice to, you know, you ease them into that language of argumentation and and we use claim, evidence, reasoning across math, language, social studies, and science. That's just common language we've adopted. We've adopted the science, claim, evidence, reasoning. So my kids have always been pretty good about cooperative learning, but it's nice to see that the conversations, you know, they don't expect me to do everything for them. They know they're going to have to do it. And I just like the rhythm of the units. When we're doing an Amplify unit, they know they've got a warm up to do that day. And so they get into the warm up, and then by the time I'm ready, we're ready to go for the rest of the lesson. So I do like the structure. But with my students, I just see them getting better and better. And as sixth grade adopted, you know, started using Amplify, they are very used to that claim, evidence, reasoning structure. They're just they're excited to solve a new problem. They know, oh, what's the big question? They kind of get used to that once you're coming in from 6th to 7th to 8th. So those are some of the successes I've seen, and just the general excitement because they're doing the learning. They're not being told what to do. The application is powerful in this curriculum.
All right, so if nobody has any chat questions, that is all we have for you today. Karla, is there anything else you want to say before we head out?
No, like I said, if you ever have questions, you can look me up on Twitter and direct message me. It's just at Orosco Science. And, or if you go to acres7.net, that is our team webpage. And I'm happy to be a resource. I'm always looking to meet new science teachers across the country, because you probably might get my students because they might move from me and go to you. So just enjoy it. Give feedback when you see something that you'd like to see change. They do listen. And just let your kids explore. Don't feel like you have to be the center of everything. So hopefully we'll all get to go back to school at some time this year. And thank you for attending today.
All right, and that is all we have. Don't forget to come to our Facebook group and join that for a lot of great connections with other educators. And we'll see you guys on our next webinar. Bye.
Bye-bye. Well, thank you for inviting me, Maggie.